Most men believe confidence comes from within. They think it grows from self-belief, positive thoughts, or some mystical inner strength. I have watched empires rise and fall, witnessed the strongest minds crumble under pressure, and seen the weakest souls command armies. Let me tell you what I discovered. Confidence is not born, it is forged, and the man who understands how to forge it becomes untouchable. You have been told lies about strength. Society whispers that confidence is feeling good about yourself, believing in your abilities, hoping for the best. These are the delusions of children. Real confidence, the kind that moves mountains and bends nations to your will, comes from something entirely different. It comes from preparation meeting opportunity, while lesser men fumble in darkness. I shall teach you what took me decades to understand. There exists a pattern among those who command respect, who shape history, who never bend under pressure. They do not hope, they do not wish, they know. And that knowledge becomes their armor, their sword, their crown. Today, you will learn to think as they think, act as they act, and carry yourself as they carry themselves. Before we begin, understand this. What I am about to share will change how you see every interaction, every challenge, every moment of doubt. Once you grasp these principles, you cannot return to ignorance. You cannot unsee the game being played around you every day. The weak will seem transparent, the manipulative will appear obvious, and you will move through the world with the quiet certainty of a man who knows exactly what he is doing. Asterisk, asterisk. Lesson 1, master the theater of presence. Asterisk, asterisk. Every room is a stage. Every conversation is a performance. Every entrance is an audition for power. Most men stumble onto this stage unprepared, hoping their good intentions will carry them. They are devoured before the curtain falls. I have observed that presence begins before you speak, before you act, before you even enter the space. It begins with understanding that others are always watching, always judging, always deciding whether you deserve their respect or their dismissal. The man who controls this first impression controls the entire encounter. Here is what the weak do not comprehend. People decide your value within seconds, not minutes, not after they get to know you, not after you prove yourself through deeds. Seconds. In those crucial moments, they are not analyzing your character or your competence. They are reading signals. The way you hold yourself, the pace of your movement, the steadiness of your gaze, the tone of your voice before you say anything meaningful. You must become deliberate in every gesture. When you enter a room, you do not rush. You do not apologize for taking up space. You do not glance around seeking approval or permission to exist. You survey, you assess. You take the measure of everyone present while revealing nothing of your own thoughts. This is not arrogance. This is control. I learned this during my darkest political hours, when enemies surrounded me, when allies whispered behind closed doors, when every word I spoke could topple governments or save nations. In those moments, I discovered that confidence is not about feeling unshakable. It is about appearing unshakable. Even when uncertainty gnaws at your mind, the appearance becomes reality. Others begin to treat you as immovable, and gradually you become exactly that. Watch how you carry yourself in the next 24 hours. Notice when you shrink, when you defer, when you signal weakness without realizing it. Most men leak uncertainty through 1,000 small gestures. They speak too quickly, laugh too nervously, explain too much. They treat silence as something to be filled rather than wielded. Asterisk, asterisk. Lesson 2. Command through calculated silence. Asterisk, asterisk. Words are the currency of the desperate. Silence is the treasure of kings. I have watched men destroy their own authority by talking when they should have listened, explaining when they should have simply stated, defending when they should have remained unmoved. The world fears what it cannot predict. When you speak constantly, you become predictable. When you explain every decision, you invite debate. When you justify every action, you grant others the power to judge you. But when you speak with precision, when your words carry the weight of careful thought, when silence surrounds your statements like armor, then you become dangerous. I recall negotiations where the fate of nations hung in balance. The men who spoke first, who filled awkward pauses with nervous chatter, who revealed their positions too early, they lost before the real discussion began. But those who could sit in silence, who let others expose their weaknesses while revealing nothing themselves, they shaped history. Silence is not emptiness, it is pressure. When you remain quiet while others babble, you create tension they feel compelled to fill. They begin revealing information they never intended to share. They start making concessions to break the discomfort. They show you their cards while yours remain hidden. This does not mean becoming mute. It means becoming selective. Every word you speak should serve a purpose. Either it advances your position, gathers information, or establishes your authority. Everything else is waste. The man who speaks little but speaks with weight commands more attention than the one who chatters endlessly. Practice this immediately. In your next conversation, resist the urge to fill every pause. Let others rush to explain themselves while you simply listen and observe. Watch how they reveal more than they intended. Notice how your perceived value rises when your words become scarce. Asterisk, asterisk, lesson 3. Build unshakable mental foundations. Asterisk, asterisk. Confidence without substance is performance. It may fool some temporarily, but it crumbles when tested by real pressure. True, confidence rests on foundations so solid that nothing can shake them. These foundations are not built from wishful thinking or positive affirmations. They are constructed from competence, preparation, and the deep knowledge that you can handle whatever comes. I have seen men who appeared confident in calm waters panic when storms arrived. Their confidence was borrowed, built on favorable circumstances rather than inner strength. But I have also witnessed those who remained steady when everything collapsed around them. The difference was simple. One group hoped they could handle challenges. The other group knew they could. Knowledge is confidence crystallized. When you truly understand your field, your capabilities, your options, fear becomes impossible. Not because nothing can go wrong, but because you know exactly what you will do when things do go wrong. Preparation eliminates the unknown. The unknown is where fear lives. Most men avoid the difficult work of becoming genuinely competent. They prefer the easier path of pretending competence, of hoping no one will test them too severely. This is why they remain anxious beneath their confident facade. They know their foundation is sand, not stone. Begin building real foundations immediately. In whatever field matters most to you, become undeniably skilled. Study not just the basics, but the advanced principles others ignore. Understand not just what works, but why it works. Know not just the rules, but the exceptions that prove them. When your competence becomes unquestionable, confidence follows naturally. This is not about perfection. It is about preparation. The surgeon who has performed a procedure 1,000 times does not fear the operating room. The general who has studied every possible battlefield scenario does not panic when plans change. The negotiator who understands human psychology better than his opponents do does not worry about being outmaneuvered. Your confidence must rest on something real. Build that foundation with knowledge, skill, and relentless preparation. When others doubt, you will know. When others guess, you will be certain. And that certainty will radiate from every word you speak, every decision you make, every challenge you face. Asterisk, asterisk. Lesson 4. Transform opposition into advantage. Asterisk, asterisk. I have learned that the strongest men are forged in the fires of opposition. While others crumble when faced with resistance, the truly dangerous individual sees opposition as raw material for their ascent. This is not mere optimism, this is strategy. Every enemy you face reveals something valuable about yourself and your position. Every critic exposes weaknesses you must address. Every obstacle forces you to develop capabilities you never knew you possessed. Most men waste energy fighting against these forces. I learned to harness them. During my years in the political wilderness, when my own party cast me aside, when newspapers mocked my warnings, when colleagues dismissed my urgency about gathering threats, I could have retreated into bitterness. Instead, I studied why they opposed me. What fears drove their resistance? What interests made my truth inconvenient? This knowledge became power. Opposition teaches you precision. When every word you speak faces scrutiny, you learn to choose those words with surgical care. When every decision you make draws fire, you develop the discipline to make only decisions that matter. When every position you take requires defense, you discover which positions are truly worth holding. Here is what I discovered. The man who has never faced serious opposition remains weak because he has never been tested. His confidence is brittle because it has never been struck. But the man who has weathered storms, who has been attacked and emerged stronger, who has learned to use criticism as a whetstone for his convictions, that man becomes unbreakable. You must reframe every attack as intelligence gathering. When someone challenges your authority, they reveal exactly what threatens them about you. When they mock your ambitions, they show you which dreams they fear might come true. When they question your methods, they expose their own limitations. I have watched men destroy themselves trying to silence their critics. They exhaust their energy on defense, explaining, justifying, pleading for understanding. This is the behavior of the weak. The strong man listens to opposition with cold calculation. He extracts what is useful, discards what is worthless, and uses the friction to sharpen his edge. Begin viewing every form of resistance as feedback, not personal attack, but data. What pattern emerges from the criticism you receive? Where do your opponents consistently strike? These are not wounds to heal, but maps to treasure. They show you exactly where to build strength. Asterisk, asterisk, lesson 5. Control the tempo of every encounter. Asterisk, asterisk, time is the invisible battlefield where all victories are won or lost. The man who controls timing controls everything. I have seen brilliant strategies fail because they were executed at the wrong moment. I have witnessed inferior plans succeed because they moved with perfect timing. Most men are slaves to other people's schedules, other people's urgency, other people's definitions of when things must happen. They react instead of act. They respond to pressure instead of creating it. They dance to rhythms set by those who understand this principle while they remain ignorant of it. I learned this truth in the halls of power, where every delay, every pause, every moment of acceleration carried consequence. When you control the pace of decisions, negotiations, and conflicts, you determine the conditions under which they unfold. Those conditions determine the outcome. The desperate man reveals his desperation through haste. He accepts the first offer, agrees to unfavorable terms, makes concessions to speed things along. But the man who understands timing moves deliberately. He creates space for better opportunities to emerge. He lets others exhaust themselves with impatience while he remains fresh for the decisive moment. This does not mean moving slowly. It means moving at the optimal speed for your objectives. Sometimes that requires lightning action. Sometimes it demands patient waiting. The key is that you choose the tempo based on strategic advantage, not emotional pressure. I have sat in rooms where men far more powerful than myself grew agitated because I would not be rushed into decisions that would have ruined everything I had worked to achieve. They interpreted my deliberation as weakness. They were wrong. My refusal to accept their timeline was the very source of my strength in those moments. Watch how others try to impose their timing on you. Notice when they create false urgency to force hasty decisions. Observe how they use phrases like "we need this now" or "time is running out" to make you act against better judgment. These are the tools of those who benefit from your rushed choices. Begin practicing temporal control immediately. When someone demands an immediate answer to an important question, respond with calm deliberation. Let me consider this properly and respond tomorrow. When negotiations feel rushed, slow them down. This deserves more careful examination. When others panic about deadlines, maintain your steady pace. The man who controls time controls the game. He chooses when to strike and when to wait. He forces others to play by his schedule rather than dancing to theirs. This single skill will transform every negotiation, every conflict, every important decision you face. Asterisk, asterisk, lesson 6. Master the architecture of respect. Asterisk, asterisk. Respect is not given. It is not earned through good intentions or noble character. It is built brick by brick through consistent demonstration of capability and strength. I have observed that most men confuse being liked with being respected. This confusion destroys their authority before it can develop. Likability is emotional. Respect is mathematical. It follows predictable patterns based on observable behavior. When you consistently deliver on commitments, when your word proves reliable, when you demonstrate competence under pressure, respect accumulates naturally. But when you make promises you cannot keep, when you buckle under challenge, when you seek approval rather than results, respect erodes just as predictably. I have known men who were beloved by all, yet commanded nothing. Their kindness was taken for weakness. Their generosity was exploited. Their good nature became the very thing that prevented them from achieving their purposes. I have also known men who were feared, sometimes disliked, but whose word could move armies and reshape nations. This is not a call for cruelty or arrogance. It is recognition that respect flows toward those who demonstrate power responsibly. The surgeon earns respect through flawless operations, not bedside manner. The general earns respect through victories, not popularity among troops. The leader earns respect through results, not speeches about good intention. You must become ruthless about keeping your word. Every promise you make is a deposit in the bank of respect. Every commitment you break is a withdrawal. Most men make this calculation carelessly, promising more than they can deliver, agreeing to things they have no intention of completing. They spend their respect faster than they earn it. Here is what I learned through decades of wielding authority. Others watch your smallest commitments to predict your largest ones. If you arrive late to minor meetings, they assume you cannot be trusted with major responsibilities. If you make excuses for small failures, they doubt your ability to handle significant challenges. Begin treating every commitment as sacred. If you say you will call at 3 o'clock, call at 3 o'clock. If you promise a result by Friday, deliver by Thursday. If you commit to a standard of behavior, maintain that standard even when inconvenient. This discipline creates a reputation that opens doors nothing else can open. Respect is architecture. Each interaction adds to the structure or weakens its foundation. Build carefully, consistently, with materials that will not crumble under pressure. The man whose respect is unshakable finds that others naturally defer to his judgment, seek his guidance, and trust his leadership. Asterisk, asterisk, lesson 7. Weaponize your reputation before you need it. Asterisk, asterisk, I have discovered that reputation is the only currency that appreciates with time. Yet most men spend it as carelessly as pocket change. They believe reputation follows achievement. This is backwards thinking. Achievement follows reputation. The man who understands this principle shapes perception before reality, controls narrative before events unfold. During my years observing power at its highest levels, I noticed a pattern. Those who rose fastest were not always the most capable. They were the most deliberate about how their capabilities were perceived. They crafted their legend, while others hoped their work would speak for itself. Work never speaks. People speak about work, and what people say matters more than what actually happened. You must become the author of your own story before others write it for you. Every interaction plants a seed in someone's mind about who you are. Most men leave this process to chance. They assume good work will be noticed, that competence will be recognized, that character will shine through. These assumptions have buried more careers than incompetence ever has. I learned to think like a strategist about every encounter, not manipulatively, but systematically. When I entered a room, I considered what impression I wanted to leave. When I took on a project, I thought about how its completion would reflect on my capabilities. When I spoke in meetings, I chose words that would be remembered and repeated. Here is what the unsuccessful fail to grasp. People remember stories, not statistics. They recall moments of impact, not steady competence. They talk about dramatic successes and spectacular failures, not quiet consistency. If you want your reputation to grow, you must give people something worth remembering and repeating. This does not mean becoming theatrical or false. It means being intentional about which truths you emphasize. Every person contains multitude. You can be both cautious and bold, both analytical and decisive, both collaborative and independent. The question is which aspects you choose to highlight in different contexts with different audiences. I have watched men of genuine talent remain obscure because they never considered how their talents appeared to others. They focused entirely on the work itself, never on the perception of the work. Meanwhile, others with lesser abilities but greater awareness of image and timing rose to positions where their limitations became evident only after they had secured power. Begin auditing your reputation immediately. What story do people tell when your name arises in conversation? Not the story you wish they would tell, but the story they actually tell. If you do not know, you are already at a disadvantage. Ask trusted allies what they hear about you in rooms you do not enter. Listen without defending. This intelligence is invaluable. Then become deliberate about every reputation-building opportunity. When you solve problems, ensure the right people understand your role in the solution. When you demonstrate expertise, do so in ways that will be discussed later. When you handle challenges with grace, make certain that grace is witnessed and remembered. The man who builds his reputation systematically creates momentum that carries him through inevitable setbacks. When temporary failures arise, his established narrative protects him. When opportunities emerge, his known capabilities position him to seize them. Reputation becomes armor and weapon simultaneously. Asterisk, asterisk, lesson 8. Turn uncertainty into strategic advantage. Asterisk, asterisk. I have lived through periods where the future seemed impossible to predict, where every decision carried enormous consequences, where the wrong choice could destroy everything I had built. In those moments, I discovered that uncertainty is not the enemy of confidence. Uncertainty is the breeding ground where true confidence is born. Most men are paralyzed by what they cannot know. They demand guarantees before they act, certainty before they commit, assurance before they risk anything meaningful. This demand for certainty is the very thing that ensures they remain powerless. The world does not wait for your comfort level to improve. I have observed that the most successful individuals share one characteristic. They move forward despite incomplete information, not recklessly, but with calculated boldness. They understand that perfect knowledge is never available, that waiting for certainty means waiting forever, that action taken with 70% certainty beats inaction with 90% certainty. Here is the paradox that weak minds cannot grasp. The more comfortable you become with uncertainty, the more certain your success becomes. While others hesitate, you advance. While others gather more data, you gather more territory. While others debate possibilities, you create realities. Uncertainty reveals opportunity that certainty obscures. When everyone knows what will happen, competition becomes fierce and margins disappear. But when the future remains unclear, when others pull back in confusion, space opens for those bold enough to claim it. I have built my greatest victories in moments when conventional wisdom counseled caution. You must train yourself to see uncertainty as advantage rather than obstacle. Every unclear situation contains possibilities that clarity would eliminate. Every ambiguous moment offers multiple paths forward while others see only confusion. Every period of instability creates openings for those prepared to act while others remain frozen. This requires a fundamental shift in thinking. Instead of asking, what if this goes wrong? Ask, what becomes possible if this goes right? Instead of focusing on what you cannot control, focus on what you can influence. Instead of demanding guarantees, create contingencies. I have learned to make uncertainty work for me through preparation and positioning. When outcomes remain unclear, I prepare for multiple scenarios. When directions remain unknown, I position myself to benefit from several possible developments. When others retreat to safety, I advance to opportunity. The confident man does not need certainty to act. He needs only sufficient probability to justify action. He moves forward with incomplete information because he knows that motion creates more information than waiting ever will. He understands that perfect timing never arrives, that optimal conditions never exist, that the ideal moment is always now. Begin embracing uncertainty as your natural element. Stop seeking permission from circumstances to begin important work. Stop waiting for conditions to improve before taking significant action. Stop demanding guarantees before making necessary commitments. The world belongs to those who move, while others hesitate. Asterisk, asterisk. Lesson 9. Command through strategic vulnerability. Asterisk, asterisk. I have discovered one of the most counterintuitive principles of leadership. The man who never shows weakness appears weak. The man who reveals strategic vulnerability demonstrates ultimate strength. This lesson contradicts everything you have been taught about power. Yet, it remains one of the most potent tools in the arsenal of true leaders. Most men believe strength means never admitting mistakes, never acknowledging limitations, never showing that anything affects them. They construct elaborate facades of invulnerability that fool no one and inspire nothing. People follow leaders they can trust, and trust requires glimpses of authentic humanity. During my most challenging periods, I learned that selective vulnerability creates deeper loyalty than perfect facades ever could. When I acknowledged the weight of difficult decisions, people understood the gravity of our situation. When I admitted uncertainty about outcomes, they appreciated my honesty rather than questioning my competence. When I showed that I felt the burden of responsibility, they were more willing to share that burden. Here is what the weak-minded cannot comprehend. Admitting specific limitations while demonstrating overall competence increases rather than decreases authority. The surgeon who says this operation carries risks I cannot eliminate inspires more confidence than one who promises impossible certainty. The general who acknowledges battlefield uncertainty while maintaining strategic clarity earns deeper trust than one who claims to foresee everything. Strategic vulnerability requires precise calibration. You reveal struggles that humanize you without undermining confidence in your capabilities. You acknowledge challenges that demonstrate wisdom without suggesting incompetence. You show emotion that proves your investment without indicating weakness. I have watched leaders destroy themselves through either extreme. Some revealed too much, oversharing every doubt and fear until followers lost faith in their judgment. Others revealed too little, maintaining such rigid control that they appear disconnected from reality and incapable of genuine connection. The key lies in choosing what to reveal and to whom. Your closest advisors need to see more of your thinking process than your general audience. Those who work directly with you require more insight into your decision-making than those who simply follow your direction. Context determines appropriate levels of transparency. When you acknowledge mistakes quickly and directly, you demonstrate the security that comes from genuine strength. When you admit knowledge limitations while showing commitment to finding answers, you prove wisdom rather than weakness. When you express concern about outcomes while maintaining determination to achieve them, you inspire others to match your dedication. This principle extends beyond verbal admissions. How you handle failure, respond to criticism, and adapt when circumstances change all communicate either strategic vulnerability or brittle defensiveness. The strong leader absorbs feedback without becoming defensive. The weak leader deflects every challenge to protect his image. Begin practicing calculated openness immediately. In your next leadership situation, acknowledge one specific challenge you face while maintaining confidence in your overall direction. Notice how this honesty strengthens rather than weakens your position with those who matter. The man who can show strategic vulnerability while maintaining overall authority becomes impossible to undermine. His honesty disarms critics, his humanity inspires followers, and his strength shines brighter because it rests on genuine rather than manufactured foundation. You now possess what most men will never understand. These are not theories to debate or philosophies to ponder. These are weapons forged in the crucible of real power, tested in the fires of genuine consequence. I have given you the tools that shape nations and determine the course of history itself. But knowledge without application is merely intellectual decoration. The man who learns these principles yet fails to use them remains as powerless as the one who never learned them at all. The difference between you and those who will remain weak is simple. You will act. You will practice. You will forge yourself into something unbreakable while they continue hoping circumstances will improve. I have observed that transformation happens in moments, not months. The moment you decide to master your presence rather than hope for acceptance, the moment you choose strategic silence over desperate explanation, the moment you build real competence instead of pretending it exists. These moments separate those who rule their destiny from those who remain its victims. The world has not become gentler since I walked these halls of power. If anything, it has grown more ruthless, more demanding, more unforgiving of weakness. The principles I have shared remain as relevant today as they were when I first learned them through necessity and applied them through will. You stand at a crossroads now. Behind you lies the comfortable illusion that confidence comes from feeling good about yourself. Ahead lies the harder path of forging confidence through preparation, presence, and power. Most will choose comfort. You are not most men. Go forward and become dangerous. Not to the innocent, but to those who would diminish you. Not to the weak, but to those who profit from your weakness. The world needs men who understand these truths and wield them with wisdom. It needs leaders who have been tempered by opposition and strengthened by uncertainty. Remember this above all. Confidence is not a gift you receive, it is a crown you claim, and once claimed, it can never be taken from you again.